Mills with Make and Create for needlecraft. Today we're just going to be doing a nice recap for knitting. So I've just got some yarn and my needles. I don't think any of you will really recognise these needles so much because they have a kind of string between. They're just circular needles, don't let them scare you. They're basically just the same, just if your needles were connected. I'm going to be using them in the same way anyways. So anyone in class would remember how to do a slip knot, or might. That's why I'm doing it, just to refresh you. So you bring the tail over the connected string and you have this loop. You bring the loop on top of the connected yarn string and pull that yarn string through. You then pull the tail and you have a knot that will move. You can do that on the table if you'd like, so you can actually see the string and see that over and do that. Or you can do it where you lay it over your hand and this tail string you cross over and it's through your hand, so you can then grab with your fingers the connected string and pull it through and pull that. And you can do a slip knot on the go, and I think that's quite a good technique to have under your belt. But the table way works fine. You always have a lap you can do it on. So once you've figured out how to do the slip knot, you can always replay that bit if you didn't quite get it. That's the great thing about a knitting video. Just keep replaying it, looking at it, staring at it. So now that you have a slip knot, we're going to do a long tail cast on. There's so many different ways to cast on, but I like the long tail. I like the long tail cast on because yes, it gives you a very nice finished edge and it's fun. It makes your first row a little easier as well, so that's why I like it. So I like to make my yarn a bit longer so that I have enough room, because it's called a long tail cast on. If you want to, maybe the entire length of your arms wide open if you want to knit a very long row, but I would say maybe one arm, the length of one arm. So now that you've got that, you have the long tail bit, fold that over, do your slip knot. So now you have a long tail, right, that's there. If you can put it on the needle and pull that tight. There we are. So now you have, I'm actually going to flip it just because I want the attached bit on the back. I think I feel a bit more comfortable with that. So now you have one at the back and one at the front. The front goes over your thumb, and always make sure that it goes over the right one so it doesn't get twisted. And this one goes over, the attached yarn goes over your pointer finger, like this. And then the rest, these bits over here, you will grip with your 3 fingers. So I will grip those, put my thumb under, I've got my finger under there as well, and I'm holding it like this. It's almost an L shape that I'm making with my fingers, but not quite, it's a little smaller. I don't need to pull it super tight actually, but I just need to be able to see it. So now I'm going to move this hand, my left hand. If you're left-handed, it'll have to be the opposite. And go under, over this bit, and then you're going to go through this area. And you're going to pull it tight with your thumb. Don't pull it too tight though. You will have to go through knitting it, putting the other needle in there, so you don't want to make it too tight and too hard on yourself. So under, over, and through. And then this thumb can come over here and pull that out. I've seen a lot of people actually, when they do it, under, over, through, and they end up dropping it and pulling it this way. But then they have to get their posture back, right? So I personally like to just keep my posture, drop it off my thumb, and then whoop, put my thumb over there to tighten it, and then I'm ready to go for the next one, and I can go a lot faster that way. So now that we've done a few, I think I've got 12 stitches. That's a decent amount. I'm going to flip it over so that the yarn that I'm working from, the stitches that I'm working off of, are in my left hand, or my non-dominant hand. And now I'm going to go in, around, up, down and out. You can chant that to yourself. I found it when I was young very, very useful to chant. So you're going in through the back, and remember, you're trying to only get this one loop. You're not trying to get in between, because then you're not going to get the stitch. You need to get the one loop on your yarn, like this. In, around. Also notice how I'm pinching this finger and this finger, and I pinch them between, and I'm able to hold it down. I wouldn't pull it down too hard, because that might make things a little bit hard on you. But if you just hold it down, that'll be great. In, around, up, down, out. 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 And you can just keep going that way. And now I'm going to turn it around and do it again. So the first stitch can actually be a little hard sometimes. I always try to do my first and last stitches a little tighter. Once I've done it, I try to give it a wee pull so that it's going to be a bit tighter and just not be really floppy over here. Because I've seen a lot of people put their needle over here. Don't do that. Always get it right up next to there. See, this is the stitch. This isn't the stitch. This is the last stitch that we've already knit. So you have to get it into the right one. You can turn your needles around to properly look at it, like I'm doing right here. See, I'm holding it, I'm going to pulling this bit down so I can properly show you where to put your stitch. You can do that on your own knitting, and that'll help you. So in, around, up, down and out. And then I'm going to pull that a little tighter, because that's my first stitch, so I want to make sure that that stays tight. I'm even putting my finger over here to help me out. In, around, up, down and out. Notice also how close my fingers are together at the top, and also notice how I'm using these fingers to help. Notice how I use it to hold this stitch on my needle with this hand, right? I'm holding it on the needle so it doesn't fly away on me. I notice that can really be an issue for some people who first start knitting. The whole, oh no, it's coming off, it's coming off, it's coming off, it keeps going, it's gone, and you have to completely redo it. So that's why I find using this finger, this thumb really, can be really useful in keeping my stitches together. Now, for everyone who's been practicing their needlecraft and knows everything and has done a really good job over Christmas knitting away, I'm very, very proud of you. But this might be a bit boring, so I'm going to give you something a bit more interesting. For people that need the recap, you don't need to do this right now, that's absolutely fine, don't worry about it. You can always come back to this video and skip to the very end and figure out. But I'm going to teach you how to purl, which is the opposite of knitting. So instead of going in through the back, you go in through the front. You go around, and then from the back you go up, over and out. Now knitting, you make these V's. See that V over there? Let's see. This V over here is what you make when you knit. The bump is what you make when you purl. So you can get really smooth fabrics if you knit one row and then purl the next. So for those who want to practice purling, that's what I would recommend. I'd recommend knitting one row and then purling the next and practicing that way. And you know which row you need to purl because that's the row with the bumps on it. And you know which row you need to knit because that's the row that's smooth. So if you look at your knitting and it's all smooth, you say, okay, this is where I knit. And then you look at the row, the back, and it's all bumpy. You say, okay, now I purl. And you can get a lovely stockinette stitch, I believe it's called. So I'm going in through the front, around, up, over, out, in through the front, around, up, over, out, in through the front, around, up, over, out, in through front, around, up, over, out, in through the front, around, up, over, out, in through the front, around, up, over, out, in through the front, around, up, over, out. Alrighty, and there I've made some bumps. So now this row, I see that's smooth V's and everything. So I'm going to tell myself, okay, I'm going to knit that because I'm going to make some more smooth V's and I want them all together. So I'm just knitting like normal, like we normally have and normally do. And now I'm back over here with these bumps and I'm going to purl again. Over here, I see this stitch has gotten a little loose, so remember, don't get it in there. Get right over here. Tighten that. And out into the front, around, up, over, out. 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 I'm just trying to knit with my thumb less over it so you can see how it gets inserted. Once you have learned to knit, everything in knitting becomes a bit easier. So as you can see, purling isn't that different from knitting. It won't be nearly as hard as when you first started knitting. And there we go, I have my nice smooth bit. And you can make this beautiful, lovely, smooth like texture and then the bumpy bit on the back, and it's absolutely lovely. I am going to cast off. I knit 2 stitches and then I pass this stitch over this stitch like that. I can also use my needle to do that. So bring my needle under here and then hold down with the yarn and I can cast off that way. And that can go a little bit quicker if you have good tension. If your tension is a little tight, first off, you should try to loosen that up, but you might want to use your fingers like I was doing in the beginning. If you're left-handed, things are going to be a little different. I'm going to take this apart actually. And that's that. And now for every knitter, when you have 1 stitch left, you can take it off your needles and pull the string through. That's when you cut it, and then you can pull it all the way through and finish your yarn off. I'm not going to because I can save this yarn to do an actual wee project. That's definitely something that you shouldn't be too scared of, to take your yarn, to rip your project apart basically. We call it frogging. So now that's done. That's our needlecraft lesson for today. Hope you're all safe and happy and at home. I'll see you next week. Bye bye.